Hello everybody, Ketshi1383 with Ketshi Gaming, and I want to make this video a while ago. And I've just been busy writing a script slash looking for a job, and I have some free time today as I'm waiting on a possible interviews. So I thought I'd just do this real quick. I know I'm a bit late to this particular subject, but I still wanted to cover it because, well, let me get into some background. I played Pokemon when I was 11, 12 on the Game Boy. Yes, I'm that old. And I didn't really play it until Pokemon Sun and Moon came out. I don't know why, I just decided to one day just pick up Pokemon Sun and Moon. I think they were on sale is why, probably. And there's a few disappointments with that, but I'm not going to go over that because I want to focus on Scarlet and Violet. Mainly because I found Sword and Shield to be a bit of a disappointment. It felt more like a remake of the first two Pokemon than it did a brand new game. I mean, they didn't even use writable Pokemon like they had in Sun and Moon. Then Pokemon Arceus came out, and that felt like a combination of Let's Go Pikachu slash Arceus. And I had a decent time with it. I never completed it, and I probably will eventually at some point. I just haven't had time. It's also one of the reasons why I haven't covered Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, because I haven't been playing it until recently, in the last couple of weeks, in between applying for jobs every day. Amongst other games I'm trying to get in there, maybe I can make content for down the road. So I was actually very suspicious of both Pokemon and Scarlet coming out so early after Pokemon Arceus and even Sword and Shield. And I feel like that's very justifiable considering that there isn't that much of a difference in terms of the appearance of all the Pokemon and the characters in the game. And in some cases, even a reduction in content, like all the clothing that you no longer have access to. Everybody wears the same skinny pants, which I really wish they would stop making every character wear skin tight jeans, including the guys. It's just terrible. I feel like some stupid idiotic hipster wearing skinny pants like that. I'd also wish they would do other things. Like, this series has been going on for a really, really long time now. And one of the things I noticed was when you have your obligated rival, you don't have much of a choice in it. Nimona, or whatever her name is, I honestly don't care. She's older, like a lot older. She's taller, and she has more of a mature figure, so to speak. So, but still in the same class as you, which was really, really weird. That she's stalking someone younger than she is. And that's what the relationship with her feels like, stalking. Constantly following you around, forcing you into battles that you really don't want to do because she's just kind of annoying and creepy, in my opinion. But that wasn't the first thing I noticed. Although the nature of the obligatory rival in Pokemon games has changed, I kind of wish it would just go away. They don't really push you towards getting better in any shape or form. And this time around, it's just really, really bad. Here, let me play a clip for you. So let me give you some context for this clip. This is after you beat the Elite Four plus, why can't I remember her name? The Primera? And I'm standing out there, and you go through this conversation in which she asks you to be rivals forever and ever. Doesn't matter if you tell her no. She will not take no for an answer. Why did they program it to allow you to say no if no is not an answer that she's going to accept? You should be accepting no. This is terrible game design, and like I said, it makes her look like a creepy stalker. I mean, that's not the only issue. It's kind of cool that, yes, they took it to an open world where you can see all the Pokemon and stuff like that. But it feels like they didn't quite optimize it. I don't know why. But the animation in this is chunky. Like, chunkier than a chunky can of soup chunky. Like, you can see here, this is just a cutscene in a classroom with nothing more than just a handful of sprites in it. You can see the animation of the kids kicking their legs. It's choppy as an ocean in a hurricane. And I kind of wonder, what were they thinking when they did this and thought this was okay? I don't know if they needed more powerful hardware, in which case they probably should have just delayed it, because the new Nintendo system is probably going to come out maybe not next year, but the year after. Soonish. Let's go with soonish. At least I'm predicting that. And it's not just in this classroom. It's everywhere. Anything out in the distance, it turns into more or less a kind of slideshow of sorts. And on top of that, this game feels like it's packed full of really pointless bits and pieces. Like right here in the classroom, when you first start the game, she's asking you questions. These have no bearing on the game in any shape or form later on at all. I don't even know why they're in the game. And they do it multiple times. Here we are at the end of the game, after you do all the fun stuff, except for maybe gather all the Pokemon. You go back around and you fight all the gym leaders again. Because why not? They did it in Sword and Shield, but they just put it in different places here. And she asks you a whole bunch of questions about which gym leader gave you the hardest time, which one do you like the most, stuff like that. It has no bearing on the game in any shape or form, and I don't get why it's in the game. It was actually just really annoying having to sit there and answer these questions, mainly because I don't even remember any of the gym leaders outside of Larry. And then there's a other long-running trope with the series of all the characters never having a dad. This is literally the first time that I know of where even a dad is involved. There's probably things here and there, but they're always minor characters. And technically, this isn't even the dad character. It's a AI version of him. And he's a villain. Not intentionally, but yeah. It's like things they could be changing, they haven't changed. They just haven't been mixing up their formula enough. And it's starting to go stale. It already has for me. The only reason why I have these games is for content, for videos. And the form of that content isn't what I thought it would be. It's more like me doing this rant, which I don't think I'm going to get my money's worth in terms of actual content for this. Maybe playtime, because I did earn all the Pokemon. I shouldn't say earn. I captured all the Pokemon. But there are aspects to this game that just felt like, why did they do what they did? So another weird thing that I found in this game, or at least I just don't like, is anything involving food in which your character eats it and shares it with your Pokemon. They do this animation right here where you're just sitting and you show him opening his mouth. He's not actually eating anything in his hands. He just opens his mouth, chew, 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 while showing art of a sandwich that doesn't even match the art style of the game. It's so out of place and weird. They could easily cut out the part where you just order and then get the benefits from the sandwich. No need to do the weird animation of your character sitting there opening his mouth to absolutely nothing except for a background picture. Cutting out a big chunk of the game that isn't even necessary, or even compelling, or even good. It's just a waste of time and memory and resources for the system and your time as well. This isn't the last questionable thing. I also have kind of a small issue with the battle system in this game. And that I've had some weird things, or at least I consider weird things, happen. I've had level 100 Pokemon get one-shotted by level 40 Pokemon. And that's after pumping them up with EVs and all the other fun stuff that you can do. It just randomly happens. I've had Pokemon far higher in level just get stomped by lower Pokemon out of nowhere. I've never actually had that happen in any of the previous Pokemon games that I've played. This one, it just happens all the time. Even when it's like ineffective and it takes off 75% of my Pokemon's health from an ineffective move from a Pokemon 20 to 40 levels below. One of the last things I wanted to go over are the raid dens. So, personally, I don't really care for these in any shape or form. It's a carryover from Sword and Shield. Not quite as bad. Sword and Shield had its issues, especially when giving you helper Pokemon, in which they would give you Pokemon that were weak and susceptible to the Pokemon you were battling. On top of that, they'd also give you Pokemon where the AI would just do stupid stuff like polish rock. It would do that every time. It wouldn't even attack. And so you would lose the raid. You're supposed to ideally team up with other players. That doesn't always happen. And actually, in my experience, depending on what Pokemon you're trying to go up against, it doesn't happen at all in some cases. Like, the raids were not thought out to allow for people who either can't get other players to join them, or in some cases where you need a very specific Pokemon trained with very specific moves, like, would say, the Charizard or the Cinderace events. Hell, I've had 5-star raids I can't do with level 100 Pokemon because it's so imbalanced. With the amount of damage they do, the amount of turns they get, they should not get 2 turns per turn that they get. And they shouldn't be hitting every single last Pokemon in their turns as well. And then the shields that they pop up. Sometimes these are just super ridiculous and take way more damage than they should. On top of that, if you go down, they take away timer, and then they add a secondary timer for you to spawn back in. They already punished you once by taking away time, now they're taking even more time away. You don't punish players for failing, especially when you failed on a game design aspect of imbalancing your game when it comes to fighting it with random Pokemon generated by the game or the ones they just randomly give you, especially when some of them are weak to the very thing we're fighting. And I'm working on a video on long-term effects of game design, and I might actually have to go back and add this game specifically, reiterating what basically more or less what I went over, but going in more detail. In that it feels like they did not take into consideration that eventually you will not be able to find groups of people and you're stuck with the AI, and the AI makes stupid decisions, making it really hard to actually do some of these raids. Only reason why you see me doing the race, Cinderace, is this Pokemon was specifically built for that purpose. You really can't do that for each and every single raid. It's just not feasible. The 5 stars are doable, but sometimes they're just ridiculously hard and they'll stomp everything that they put in its way. It doesn't matter which Pokemon you have, they'll just stomp it into the ground, including the AI. Other times it's easy enough. But it just feels like they did not think about this as much as they should have. I was slightly entertained by it, but if I knew it was going to have some of the issues that it did have, I would have waited to see if it would ever go on discount or bought it used, to be honest, because the price that I paid for it was not worth what I paid for it. And I feel like Game Freak is definitely to blame in this case, getting complacent and lazy. I mean, Pokemon doesn't really have any competition. I mean, you have Digimon, but it doesn't even come close. I mean, Pokemon's the #1 most recognized brand in the world. And it feels like they're just making whatever they can, whenever they can, because they can. I mean, without competition, this is what we get. There's very little improvements. In some cases, there's even some detractions from the game. Honestly, this is kind of like Halo 5 for me, with maybe the next Pokemon being the last time I'll bother buying a Pokemon game unless it's a major improvement. Like, I'm probably never ever going to play Halo Infinite again. I thought it was okay, but I'm probably not going to bother with any Halo game after it. As an example, that's what I feel like in terms of Pokemon at this point in time. So if you made it through my rant, thank you for watching, and have a good one.